I think one of the things that parents should really pay attention to is just how they act. How are they? Because their kids are going to mimic how they act. So if I'm going to be encouraging to the coach, the kids are going to be encouraging the coach. If the parents are going to belittle the coach, the player is too.
Welcome to the Parenting Athletic Kids podcast. My name is Travis Rogers. I'm a mental performance coach and the father of two athletic boys. Through this podcast, I hope to deliver actionable strategies that you can implement to help your son or daughter optimize their personal and athletic growth. I also hope these conversations help you enjoy the ride. If you find this podcast useful, please be sure to like, share, and follow. Today's guest is Dave Hieb. Dave spent 34 years as a college coach, 28 of those as a head coach. After stepping away from college coaching, Dave decided to jump back into youth baseball and took the job as the baseball director at Eastridge Athletic Association. Dave's experience and insights in and around sports made for some great conversation in this podcast. Here we go. Dave, really glad to have you on the podcast today. Fortunate to have you. Really excited about this conversation and talking to you before the podcast and in days past about your experience and where you're at right now. So Dave, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Tell us about your sports journey. I know you've been a lot of places and put in a lot of coaching and where you're at right now. So take us through, I kind of start to finish, however you want to take it, your sports journey.
Yeah. So for myself, I grew up, I'm the youngest of 5 boys, and I have 4 older brothers that, to be frank, not very athletic. And so I grew up in a farm community, just growing up in West Central Minnesota. And it took one coach to really turn my life around, unbeknownst to him or me that was going to be the case. So I played football, I wrestled, I ran track, I played baseball. I went to a small school, so to be able to have a team, you just had to have athletes to be able to compete. So it's not saying that I was a great athlete. It was an opportunity to be able to play. And as I went into I was going through, and I was an okay baseball player, not great, but I had my high school baseball coach. It was after my 9th grade season, and said, "Hey, Wadena is looking to add some players for their VFW team. I think you should play." And then I got connected with this group of guys that were a little bit more wired toward playing baseball and what that was like. And my personality really fit with those guys. So I started to see a little bit in myself that although I thought I was a better football player, was that my personality really fit as a baseball player. And eventually I went on to a junior college and played football and baseball there. And then went to a 4-year institution and tried to play football and baseball there. So it was, I had a great experience all the way through. I may have thought at that time I didn't, but quite frankly, every experience I've come in contact with, the failures were probably the things that really impacted me the most and really brought me to where I am today. So after I graduated from college, I worked at a high school for a year, and I've been a certified athletic trainer since 1988. And so I'm working in a high school, and they had found out that I played baseball in college. So hey, would you mind just being not really a paid assistant, but can you be around? So I was. And then the next year I started working here at the University of Northwestern, back then known as Northwestern College. And when I got here, athletics was very different than what I was used to, playing at an NAIA. Now that institution's a D2, and coming here was, very different. And I became an assistant baseball coach based on that I had played baseball in college. And, I just got more and more involved at where I was working. So I was like, okay, an opportunity where I can coach a little bit. I hadn't thought about coaching at all. My goal was to be an athletic, to start an athletic training program at a university. That was my career goal.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden I found myself in this world of baseball, and literally more people know about me as a baseball coach than they do as athletic training. So I would have never guessed this ever in my life. So 6 years as the assistant coach, and and then our head coach talked to me before a doubleheader just to say, "Hey, I'm thinking about stepping down. You should be our next head coach." And I became the head coach. And 28 years later, spring of 23 is when I retired, and a lot of great experiences along the way. So I do have to tell this story, and I am a storyteller, So I have this story I need to tell. So this was at the ABCA convention. It's in San Diego. I can't tell you what year that was, but early 2000s. And I was in far better shape then, so I was going out for a run. And I'm decided, got a car, drove out to the ocean, and I'm gonna go jog along the ocean. As I'm driving along the ocean, and I was presenting um, at the conference later in the day, and I'm just thinking to myself, just a level of thankfulness. There I am jogging along the side of the ocean. I have my health. I have this opportunity. I have all these things to be so thankful for. And it was so overwhelming. And I think a lot of times as we go through our lives is that we don't take that break to be able to just give thanks for where we're at. And it's like, here's where I am. I would have never guessed this, that I would be sitting here doing this, being involved in this world. And it was awesome. It really was. So um, I think a lot of times as youth coaches and parents is that it's a great opportunity to be able to enjoy the journey, and then take time during that journey to be able to step back, look, and go like, wow, this has been absolutely amazing. It's like, thank you for bringing me to right now. And it was, I would hope that people would really consider taking a look at their lives and taking a look at through their kids' lives, and be able to experience the joys, no matter the struggles that are in there. There's a lot of joys.
Love it. So coaching and 28 years
Yeah.
as the head,
Yep.
or
28
20.
years as head coach. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. Really, really cool. And now after a little bit of time away from baseball, and now I know you're over at Eastridge. Tell us what you're doing at Eastridge. What's going on over there?
Yeah. So I was asked to be the baseball director. So it was literally the day after I retired from coaching. I was asked to be the Eastridge director, which I said no, because I wanted to see, what's life like without baseball. Not this past spring, but the year before, spring of 24, as I'm thinking to myself then, it was the first time I hadn't traveled to either Arizona or Florida for baseball since 1979. So I was like, I wanted to experience life just, not going somewhere for spring break. What do other people do? And it's like, what's that like? So, um, so I wanted to experience some time away. And then I just got encouraged to come back into youth sports. And, my son, when he was, was younger, he's playing, he played soccer and basketball and baseball and did travel baseball. And I would help out there. And then and then I was coaching, doing a U15 team for a few years. And getting back involved was kind of a twofold component, because I now started teaching a new class at Northwestern. One you spoke at was the techniques of coaching youth sports. And it was an opportunity where I felt like I can really gain information and give it to our students and kind of the world of youth sports. And it's been very eye-opening in a lot of good ways, as I think a lot of people are like, oh, you get to work with all these crazy parents. And it's like, there's a tiny bit of crazy, as I would say far less than I think a lot of people would expect. there's a very, very vocal minority. So, and I would put the heavy emphasis on the word minority. So it's not often, um, but it's been a really good experience. It's been something that I'm really, really glad I got involved in. And my wife might disagree, yeah, but it's been a really good experience.
So tell us a little bit more about like what you do. So for listeners, East Ridge, what would you call it? Association, baseball association. What age groups are you covering?
Yeah. Yep. So at East Ridge, it's purely travel baseball. So it's association baseball, not club ball. So association baseball, you're going to have it's U9 through U14. There are some we've had U15 teams in the past. It kind of changes from year to year. Here in Minnesota, U15 baseball is really dying a very quick death in association baseball. A lot of those families are going to club ball, and I've come to find too is that association baseball in Minnesota is very unique. The rest of when it comes to travel, when we talk about travel here, it's association ball. Go any place else in the nation, travel ball is club ball. So it's a little bit different. It's more parent run. So um, kind of give a good example of this. I just spoke at a coaches clinic. It was a youth coaches clinic this past Saturday, and I was just breaking down a basic skeleton outline for how to build a practice. So just like, okay, 20-minute segments, intro, 10, 10, and then it's 20-minute blocks, just real general. It's like how to map out individual work and small group and team. It's kind of one of the basic tenets of coaching theory. So like how to put together a practice. So I asked the group, and there's maybe 100 people in the room. It's like, so, show of hands, how many of you have taken coaching theory? One hand. So it's like, that's the difference. It's like,
Yeah.
so association ball, you're not going to have those, you're going to have moms and dads. They're just trying to do the best they can. It's like, they didn't go into this you know, because they wanted to coach. They have jobs, they have other things going on. Where club ball is like, if I ask that question with club ball coaches, like who took coaching theory, say just about every hand would go up. So that's probably the big difference. But it was eye opening. It was, it shows me where, the areas where I'm working, and there's a lot of well-intended parents. They're trying to do the very best they can. And they want to give they want to give their players, they want to give their kids the best experience they can possibly come up with.
So let's stay on that for a second. I think there are quite a few parents on here that are also coaching or are again maybe they know someone who's coaching, or it's their friend that's coaching their kids, or the neighbor, or whatever it might be. What are a few things that these association coaches, these people that have full-time jobs or doing other things, what would you say are maybe a couple, three things to emphasize? Ensure that they're bringing to the 9U or the 13U practice, or other than, I mean, a practice plan might be one of them, and being coordinated in your thoughts and that. What other kinds of things, as you're talking to this group of coaches, would you ask them to emphasize with the
Oh
kids?
yeah, great question. So, one of the things that being involved in college baseball for as long as I've had, and I'm sure you've had the same questions, like, I have a parent will ask, well, what's a good drill? Like, what's a good drill? What's something I can work on with my son? And when I was a younger coach, I would give them an actual hitting drill, pitching drill, some kind of drill. So now, whenever a parent asks me, it's like, what's your favorite drill? It's like, my favorite drill is a conversation. It was like the very favorite thing to do. It's like, what's your best drill? It's like, my best drill is a conversation. I'm going to sit down. The other thing I would say too, along with that conversation, is like, I'm going to make contact. So on my practice plan, I would write at the very top, connect with every player. And when I say connect, is I am physically connecting. So I'm not necessarily the huggy, touchy feely guy, but when I'm talking to kids, I am a tap of the hand. So I'm a constant tapper. Tap on the, so I'll use the back of my hand, and I use the back of my hand if I don't know the kid as well. And I keep more of an arm distance, so it's a tap, and it just like, so I'm touching them. I'm touching their shoulder. I'm going to use their name. I'm going to use their first name. So, whenever I would get upset at a player, I had this breakdown. What I would do is I'd say, if I'm really mad at you, if I yell at you, I'm going to yell your number. So, um, so for example, so Travis, what's a jersey number that you would wear when you were playing?
15.
15. Okay. So if you got me really upset, now typically when I say really upset would be you did something out of the dugout or did something that made our team look bad. You're chirping at the other team. So I might, yell at you like 15, knock it off. The purpose for that I would tell our players, I would communicate this with our players and the parents. I was like, if I got on you, I was like, that means you can take that jersey. I got mad at the number. I didn't get mad at you. So then what you can do is that you can go home and you can put that jersey in the laundry, wash it out. It's gone. It's like I want them to visualize it's gone. Once I say something, it's gone. It's over. You do it again, I'm going to respond again, but now it's over. Okay. And I think a lot of people, what kids are trying to, it's like, oh, coach likes me or coach doesn't like me. I was like, I want to make sure those kids understand. It's like, I can be stern. It's like, I can be angry with you. People are going to be angry with you. That's going to happen. It's like, but understand that's in the moment. As like when that moment's over, it's over. So that would be, I want to give them a visual of what that's like. So if I say your number, I'm angry at the number. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at the number. Um, the anger would come down quite a bit when I'd say their last name. And so, so I was like, Rogers, I need you. Hey, come here. It's like, and it'll be more of a stern talk. It's more one-on-one. We're away from it. We're not gonna, you know, we're gonna make sure it's a one-on-one discussion, and it might be a little more one-sided. But if I used your last name, we're gonna treat the. If I use your first name, it is total teaching. Hmm. So Travis, okay, here let's walk through this again, and I'll be very patient, and I would really take my time. As I've gotten older, I would say I've used when in correcting players, I've probably used, if I were to break it down in percentages, probably 80% first name and probably 15% last name. So it's a very, I don't even know if I'd get the 5% number. Okay. And typically it would be, it would take a while to get to the jersey number. So it might start off with a first name. It might go to a second name and then goes to the last name. So those kids would understand, if they got the second name, usually, that was, when they got the last name, that was pretty much ended it right there. So it was like, here's strike, so that's strike one, here's strike two, do it again. You know, you're going to get your jersey number. So
That's a really cool formula. How did you come up with that? Was that something that
going to the ABCA so many times, I think I stole it from somebody. I probably did. I don't feel like I have original thought. Every time I go to the ABCA, there's so many good speakers, and I've had an opportunity to go to the state conventions and go to the national conventions and and connecting with other coaches. And somebody has a good idea. It's like, man, that's a great idea. I'm going to steal it and tell everybody I invented it.
That's
It's
one of the
like,
greatest things I found about baseball, right? Is just the willingness to share and communicate and that's a really I guess I don't know other sports as well if that's true in all sports, but I feel like it's super true in baseball at least.
yeah.
That's awesome. What other things as you're communicating? So I love that as a really tangible, actionable uh, kind of way to address players and to make sure communication is kind of the number one thing at the top of the practice plan, and getting to know the kids and their stories. What anything else that you would want to bring up or touch on?
Yeah. So another thing, once again, kind of all ties around again with communication is that, I want to be able to have a time where I want to have just like I would have a conversation with the players, I would have a conversation with the parents. And sometimes the conversations would be away from the kids and sometimes with the kids. So it's a package deal. So when I'm working with a player, if I'm coaching 15s or 13s, what have you, it's always a package deal. And sometimes those packages are big packages. So you got, mom and dad are divorced, and now you know, they've got additional, they've got additional parents in the mix, and I got additional family members in the mix. So, there's with some of these kids is just trying to understand what's going on behind the scenes. And sometimes, when a kid acts out, for example, is like, are they acting out because they want something, or are they acting out because they want to avoid something? Like, what are they running towards something or running away from something? And, trying to figure out with those kids is like, well, what's that motivation? And, if I can figure out what it is, and, can we open that through a conversation? Um, so once again, just being able to have those discussions, one of the things I really enjoyed was having a conversation at the end of the year. And I would sit down with the parents and say, bring a notebook and here's some things you could work on for next year. And so we'd have a postseason. We just have the postseason breakdown, and then, parents, you can ask me questions, whatever question you'd like. So, and I've done this for years. Obviously I did it with my college guys, but, not with parents over it. But, so my favorite conversation was my very first year coaching travel baseball. I had Max Meyer, um, you know, playing for the Miami Marlins, and just happened to go to church with at that time went to the same church as the Myers, and so we're chatting, and Max's father asked me about, hey, do you think Max could play Division I baseball? Now, granted, Max was a small player; he was a small guy, so so I told the family, it's like, Max is, I don't know if he can play Division I, but he'll be a rock star at Division II. I was like, that's how good a baseball judge I am, good baseball talent evaluator. Um, but one of the things I also say as well is that on at U15, he was not the best player on his team. And then in 2020, he was drafted third overall. I was like, so the potential for kids to grow and change is obviously there. So, um, don't be disheartened by one person's opinion.
Love it. Awesome. What about so as you're working with the East Ridge and beyond, now that you've been in this and had a son that did some sports, like what would you say are the main things that parents should lean into? You've already mentioned a few. Like, I think even the communication part, we were kind of referring to coaches there, but for parents, nothing more important than having discussions and understanding what's important to your son or daughter, and how they're doing, and yada yada. So that's huge. Other things that you think parents should lean into?
Yeah, I think one of the things that parents should really pay attention to is just how they act. How are they? Because their kids are going to mimic, how they act. So if I'm going to be encouraging to the coach, the kids are going to be encouraging the coach. So if the kids are, if the player is going to be, or if the parents are going to belittle the coach, the player is too. And so, um, I'm sure you're familiar with John Scalinas. Does that name sound familiar? Or
I don't know
maybe not.
that.
Okay, so John was a D2 coach in California, and he has some. I heard him speak in Dallas at the ABCA, and funny, incredible talk. But one of the things that he would say is, which I really, really held on to, is like, no kid's ever born a donkey. So he never swore. Okay. So, so he'd say, no kid's ever born a donkey. So I was like, where did they learn that skill? And so it's like, we need to be, it's like coaches are the last truth tellers. And so those were some things that that I really leaned heavily into, was that, it's like, hey, I'm not going to raise a donkey. It's like, I'm going to be respectful. So if I'm respectful, my son better be respectful. If I'm not going to swear, he better not swear. If I'm going to, um, I'm going to try to be the best version of myself, I better expect that from my kids. And so I've got a 29-year-old son and 26-year-old daughter. I would expect the same. And so um, I think that's one thing that I think really parents should really look in the mirror and go like, okay, who am I? What kind of representation am I? And who is my kid mimicking? And if they're mimicking me, they'll say, okay, I want to be the best version. And that's where at least starts. I can't, I'm not going to be the do as I say, it's like, and not do as I do. And so that would be one. My son was, my son played a couple years of football at Northwestern, but he never started. He worked hard, and so his junior and senior year, I tried to go as many games as I could. And so after every game, he got three responses. It was I'd say the same three things every time. And I would tell him every time, his name's Anthony. He's like, Anthony, I love you. Like, every game. He's like, Anthony, I love you. I love that you're on this team. Okay. Back then, the high school team wasn't great. They're under 500, but man, I love that you're on this team. I love that you're on a team. I love that you're part of a group. I love that you're a part of something that's bigger than you. I love that you're part of this. That's a big, big deal. And the last one, which of course always broke the ice, is like, where do you want to go eat? Where do you want to eat? And just and then when we got in the car, we never talked about the game. It was like, if he brought it up, great. But it was rare. And usually when he got in the car, he was talking about something that happened at school, something he's got going on that weekend. He's just being a kid. And so he'd get in the car and we'd go grab something to eat, and he would just start talking about something that happened at school, and we would just take that conversation in. So, and the other part I would also say too is another one is like, I would try to really shut down the rumors. So hey, you know what I heard, or this is what I heard. If you start talking about something at school, like, oh, we're not going to talk about what you heard. And it's like, if we're going to talk about something, it's like, there better be full on proof. But so they got shot down pretty quick. But man, a lot of times in the stands, it's easy. I'm sitting in the stands, and parents are around and say, Dave, why isn't your son playing? It's like, obviously it's not good enough. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's like, why? Well, he's a senior. He should be playing more. Like, says who? I'm not at practice. I don't know what's going on. And it's like, he might be a total jackwagon at practice. I don't know. And it's like, but I do know this. It's like, I'm going to trust his coach for making a wise decision. Is that I'm going to tell his coach that. I'm going to tell my son that I trust his decisions. And then if he's got an issue with the coach, he's going to talk. I'm not going to talk about it, because my job is to teach him how to be an adult. And it's like, these are first steps. And so, it's these are little things that are, we refer to here when I'm coaching. I make these statements like, this is a welcome to adult land moment. It's like, welcome to adult land. This is what, we're going to try to teach you how to make adult decisions. So I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm going to tell you how. I'm going to tell you why you should think. So be an adult.
Love it. If I got to challenge you a little bit, so Anthony did not play baseball. Your son?
He played baseball through his junior year,
Okay.
and then so into his junior year he broke his wrist, and then he had made the decision that he was going to come here, early his senior year, and he's like, I need to put on some weight, so he just went in the weight room and got ready to play football here. So,
Okay.
which he regrets. He regrets that he shouldn't at least tried. It's like just to see what it's like, just to finish out. So, but that's also a life lesson as well. It's like you make decisions and you deal with it. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If he, I want to challenge you on this and see what your thoughts are. If he would have been like baseball first, really, really love baseball, really passionate about baseball, would you have challenged him in different ways, or do you think it would have been uh, more challenging for you as a baseball coach, as a baseball guy? Um, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question because I'm definitely way more wired for baseball than my son was. And
What do you mean by that? So you said that earlier too. Instead of football, which you liked, you were kind
yeah,
of
well, I mean,
right.
yeah, so a big part for me was, once again, let's go back to ninth grade VFW baseball. And I'm around these guys who they watch the game, they go watch Twins games, and you know we're constantly doing stuff around the field, show up early to practice, stay late from practice. I'd never been around a team like that. And it was like, that was fun. And, but, growing up in a small community, I said I played 4 sports. I quit track, after going into my junior year. Um, Bad decision for quitting track because my high school football coach, who was also the track coach, wanted to make me a 400-meter guy. And he knew the best skill for me. He knew that I was not going to be someone who was going to, I could run a little bit, but I was not going to go, I wasn't going to go beyond our section in track running a 100 and 200. I was like, but I would have had a shot at 400. So I would have done, I could have really done something at 400. I just thought 400 was just way too far to run. I just thought it was hard. And granted, my high school baseball practice was, we just hit every day. I'd go stand in the outfield and tell the freshmen and sophomores, like, hey, that you're closer to that one, you're closer to that one. You pick that one up. I just stood in the outfield and just directed, guys to go pick up ball. I wouldn't pick up a ball unless it was hit directly to my feet. That was high school practice. Then I got to college, and that was all different. But my personality fit well around baseball guys. I connected, and it's just the verbiage, the mindset, all there. And it's in every sport, there are some specifics with personalities. And I really like football. It's my favorite sport to watch. I really enjoy watching football. I like being around football. Um, as an athletic trainer, I really enjoyed working football, always around it. I do watch football like a coach. So when I'm watching a game, it's like, they should be calling a timeout. Okay. It's like, what play is setting up this play? So, I've, that's how I watch baseball. I watch football. I also watch baseball that way. It's like, this is, what I would do. I keep it all to myself, but this is what I would do. And, so see, that makes it fun for me. I don't know if it would have been fun for my son if I would have coached him that way. Would he have enjoyed it as I just love the strategy. I love the part and just digging into it. He might not have liked it that way. So trying to figure out, if he was wired like me, it's like, I think there'd be parts that would be fun, but I think too, I probably would have just added more. And it's like, and now knowing his personality better, obviously I've had 29 years of experience. I think if I would have just been like, just more, 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 I think I would have, um, burnt. I don't know if I don't, I don't know if I like the term burned out, It's like when I say, it's like, oh, I would burn him out of that. It's like, I would say probably like burn him up, like burn him up as in, okay, we used up all that fuel. That's kind of like when I explain how why I retired. Um, when I did, it was like, I still love baseball. I love everything I did. It's like, but I just have this much fuel and I ran out of fuel. I just, just got tired. And I think that would have been a potential for my son if I could have, because I would have been grinding. If he likes it, oh, we would have ground, we would have done more. He likes it, oh, let's do more. Let's do more. Let's just keep grinding it out, grinding it out. I was like, isn't this fun? Isn't it? I enjoy practice. And then it's like, don't you want to do more? So that's the thing where I think I could have, I could have ground him into the ground.
Sure. All right. I got something that just clicked in my head, and I've never asked this question before. But you've been in the sport a long time, and then now you're kind of in charge of, you're not kind of, you're in charge of the association. If you could build the perfect sports parent,
Hmm.
what would it look like?
The perfect sports parent, first of all, would be encouraging. It's like that'd be the first thing is they're going to encourage everybody. Um, the second thing I would say with a sport parent is um, they're gonna be a part of the team. They're gonna be a part of the program. They're gonna be involved. Um, I want to have people involved. I want to have people around. I want to have the connectedness. So they're going to cheer for their players. They're going to be encouraging. Baseball is such a hard sport, and it's such a negative sport. And this was something that I adopted probably about 10 years ago, and I could be, going into it, I could be a little negative. So what I decided to do was like, I just decided on my own, is like, I am going to make this positive as possible. And when guys strike out, they got a fist bump. They got a pat on the back, and to be frank, some of our guys hated it. It's like, hey, I struck out, I feel awful right now. And you want to give me a high five. And I was like, hey, as soon as you fist bump me, I was like, that is the process we're going to start in ending the at bat. So I was like, so we would talk through. We're going to end the at bat. I'm going to give you a fist bump. You're going to take the bat goes in the bat rack, the helmet goes in the helmet rack, your glove goes in there. And once everything goes in, the at bat's over. So it was like, we're going to be encouraging. And so I would be the one, and it's like staying involved, staying connected. So that way, I want our parents encouraging other kids, because they just constantly need feedback and encouragement, and especially with young boys, they haven't figured out who they are yet. So just getting people to like validate that, hey, this is a hard game. It's okay. Keep going.
Why is that? Do you think that positive, something around sports tend to lead toward, as parents and as coaches and as players too? Maybe it starts with the parents and coaches and trickles down to the players, but there's this, I won't even call it negative, but it's always this, I'm kind of not doing enough or not doing good enough, or I need to work on this or that or get better at this, or if I strike out, it's such a bad thing. When we all know it's a part of the process,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's how do we learn from that at bat, or the good, the bad, the ugly. How do we learn from it? And especially, I think it's true at all levels, but especially in what you're working with, 9 to 14, like, is winning that tournament really that important at 12, 13? It's really not.
No.
It feels like it is. I've been there. I've coached
Yep.
that age
Yeah.
group.
Oh yeah.
It
Yep.
feels like, man, this is a big weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But as we get older and have a bigger picture on the thing, it's about the fun that they had and the growth that they made, right? But anyway, so why do you think, like, we generally steer towards the negative, and really thinking that that's going to like drive players to perform better? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, because I think with when we're when we are doing something hard. Hard has, I think, in my opinion, hard has negative implications. If it's hard, it's going to be, oh, this is going to be difficult. There's going to be a struggle with this. This is going to be a challenge. As I, well, it's an also very easy, in my opinion, to be able to twist that. And so twist it as into, well, if it's hard, it's a grind, it's rough, it's difficult. Um, it's like you're struggling, and with guys especially, it's like, it's not, I'm struggling at the plate. It's you're struggling. It's like, that's one of the things I really wanted to watch for. So, kind of go back to a question a while ago. It's like, what are some other things that parents can do? It's like, um, be mindful of what they say. It's to talk about, hey, hey, you're struggling. It's like, no, it's like, hey, we're having some difficulties at the plate right now, but that's like that, but that's a challenge.
Right.
So it's kind of do you compete against someone or do you compete with them? Right. So we would talk about, it's like, who are your opponents? So, some would say, okay, well, I'm my opponent. Yeah. You yourself, you're your own opponent. And it's like, can you defeat yourself? I mean, as a lot of times players do, they defeat themselves. Um, they don't go into a game thinking I can excel. And they go into a game, they're like, I don't want to, it's like, don't want to strike out. Don't want to, don't want to ground. I don't want to hit into a double play. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Instead of, like, here's an opportunity. Here's a chance. I get a shot. I'm in the arena. Um, so one of the things that I would want to do with, is like, explain to players is like, yeah, there's times you're going to be competing against yourself, but you compete against the game. You don't compete against yourself. You compete against the game, and the game is going to help make you great. It's how do you phrase that? So, you compete with the other team. If you don't have the other team, you can't excel. Right? So you need the other team. It's like the officials, the umpires, whatever. It's like you compete with them. As you compete with them, you're working together. So, as a catcher, I wanted to know how well I wanted to get to know the umpire behind me, and I wanted to find out, hey, am I in your way? Can you see this well? Is there something that I can do to, and not that I'm trying to negotiate the strike zone. Is like, I just want to work with you, and I want to develop a relationship, and um, and it really wasn't for me. It wasn't about, I need to get this call or I need to get this pitch. It was more of like, hey, you're going to help me get better, and I'm striving to get better. I just,
Yeah, I think the verbiage surrounding sports is just so often not good. It puts it puts things in this negative, as you said, like context, and it's always, as you said, don't do this, don't do that. Got
yeah,
to get better at this. Got to get better at that.
yeah,
So I think parents'
yep,
awareness of that and how you can help your son or daughter, as you said, kind of change their thought process. It's an opportunity to be out here. I'm grateful to be out here. I know that sounds kind of woo woo, but I can promise, as they go up in levels and play more and more competitive, um, that they're already going to be hard on themselves. It's already embedded in sports,
mm-hmm.
and they're already going to be comparing themselves to others. That's already
Yep.
embedded in sports, especially in this day and age with showcases and Instagram and all
Mm-hmm.
so boy,
Well,
if you can find ways to flip that and keep it positive. I mean, keep it real, but keep it positive and keep
yeah,
them on the gratitude train and the great teammate train and all these other controllables.
mm-hmm.
It can have such a huge impact. I also like. What are your thoughts on this? So you were talking about how some kids just take it personally, like the strikeout. I suck. I can't hit. No,
Mm-hmm.
no, it was one at bat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But it circled me back to your number versus your name thing. Like maybe a cool thing for coaches, parents to do would, number 15 had a tough at bat right there.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yep.
Travis Rogers. It was 15 had a tough at bat. We
15 had a
go,
bad day. It's okay. Yep.
yeah, we go home, we wash it. We pull it out the next day. Hey, new 15 today.
Hmm.
Something like that. I don't know if that hits home for people, but to help your son or daughter distinguish between the sport and who they are, it's two different things, which is
Oh
getting
yeah.
harder and harder to do.
It's really hard. It's really hard. And so, especially, in my experience, that guys take so much, um, their personality is kind of wrapped up in what they do, so, so when, I say, well, I'm a baseball player, or I'm a football player, I was like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, let's start off with this. I'm a guy who plays baseball. I'm a guy who enjoys football. I'm a guy, so when I'm explaining here at Northwestern, for example, I'm a Christian man who loves football. I'm a Christian man who coaches baseball. I'm a Christian man who, um, I have it, have my interests. This is what makes me, but this is who I am first. So if we can understand, okay, I'm a guy who enjoys this. As I'm, hey, if I'm a 13-year-old kid, I'm a kid who enjoys baseball. Say, and the heavy emphasis, like, be the kid, enjoy being the kid. Um, I've seen this so often. You get these kids that are, you get the 6'1" 13-year-old, and for parents to treat that kid like an adult because he's adult sized. He's got a kid brain. He's got a 13-year-old brain inside a 25-year-old body, and everybody treats him like an adult. And it's like he still needs to be a kid. Let him be a kid. Let him make mistakes. Go, do silly things. Um, let him experience life. And it's like it's okay. And I think a lot of times too, we don't give our kids that opportunity to fall down. Hey, we're gonna just dust you off and keep you going here. It's okay. It's all right. It's like it's all about it's like trial and experience. I just don't like the term trial and error. It's like that's one of the things for me as I just change phrases a little bit. So
Mhm.
that's my trial and experience. It's like, how do you learn? You experience things. It's how do you get better and stuff? Well, you go through the struggles. It's okay. How do you get, if you get stronger in anything, it's like being in the weight room. It's like if you're in the weight room, how do you get stronger? So you got to lift until you fail. It's okay to fail. It's like, you know, I'm sure you've heard the acronym for fail. First attempt in learning. It's like, so I want to make sure it's like, these players understand, hey, you're going to fail. If you want to succeed in everything, you're going to fail. So, hey, when you fail, it's your first attempt in learning. That's, you know, what failing is quitting. So you have some struggle and then you quit. That's fail because you haven't had the opportunity to really see the long-term goals of a mistake. You know, you fail at something. It's okay. Keep getting better. When you stop, then yeah, then you fail. You just flat out fail.
Really, really cool. Love it. I think as you were just talking through that, a great thing for parents to do right now would be to sit down with your son or daughter and talk about who they are and explore that, whether it's Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
What are the foundational, the pillars of
Yeah.
who they are, things that are important to us, our values, and man, go through that frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they show up at the baseball field and they know that their values and what we believe as parents is important has nothing to do with and again, this is maybe a little pie in the sky. Baseball can be a part of it, sport can be a part of it, but it can't be the ups and downs of if that's kind of their identity, as you said, like man, the ups and downs are horrendous
Yeah. Yeah.
through that. So establishing, letting them having conversations, depending on what age they are, about establishing what that looks like would be super empowering
Yeah.
for everybody involved, right? For the kid, but
Yeah.
also for us as parents. So when we show up at games, we're reiterating like they're not a baseball player, we're a softball. They are our son or daughter,
Yeah.
and we value their effort and their energy and their teamwork
Yeah.
and all these other things. So that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, I would even as much as like, what would be a character trait you would want to carry with you? What would be something that you think is really important in your character? So it's like, oh, it might be integrity or truth or honesty or whatever. It's like, okay. It's like, you're a kid who is going to be honest. It's like, okay, no, go get him, Tiger. Go out there and get after it. Go out and compete.
Love it.
Have fun and compete. So if you can have fun and compete, man, it's like this game is going to be a blast. And if the mistakes wear you down, the failure wears you down, if it's not fun, um, and you're gonna burn up fast.
Burn up. I like that. Awesome. Any we'll start putting a bow on this baby. Anything else coming into this? Really good stuff, Dave. Really appreciate your insight. The depth, obviously, you've spent a lot of time and energy kind of getting to the place where you're at, and a lot of work, I'm sure, and open to learning and experiencing different things, all that, the ABCAs and beyond, and all that stuff. Anything else that you would want to kind of put out there to parents as we're wrapping this up?
Yeah, I would say the best thing is that we talked about it briefly, but baseball breeds a community of coaches that really want to help. So I would tell parents is that you could reach out to just about any college baseball program. There are going to be coaches available to give insight, be able to give assistance. Club programs, same thing. Um, like in our association, we've got some really, really good coaches. We got some guys who've been around the block, who've coached, who've parented Division I players, in our Eastridge program. So we've got some really good coaches, but rely on them. As they take advantage of the experience they've had, because they've had that experience of going through the process with their own son. Now their sons are now playing in Division I programs. So take advantage of what they've learned in that process. So it's always always a work in progress. So the I guess the last thing that I'd want to share is that this ends so fast. Okay, it just so I would tell parents, make sure you're dating. Okay, make sure that your world isn't just surrounded with your kid's experience. Is it because when it's over. When So my daughter was a dancer, and she did competitive dance, would travel throughout the Midwest and dance competitions and such. And we dropped her off to college. So my son was at Northwestern, my daughter was at MSU Mankato, and we're driving home, and we're going to an empty house. The first time we've had an empty house in 20 years. And we get home, and I look at my wife, it's like, it's just never going to be the same again. And then it was maybe a week or two later, we're having dinner together. We're sitting at the table. And my wife asked me, it's like, so what did we do on dates before we had kids? And we had a really good discussion about, hey, you know what? We've kind of sold our souls to all the, get to games, get to practices, got to get to competitions, and go, 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 go. And quite frankly, it didn't end for us completely until my daughter was graduated from college and done with dance. And it was like, okay, now it's done. And all of a sudden it's like, what happened? Is that we still need to date. We still need to work on our relationships. And it, you're going from tournament to tournament, place to place. And you really have to focus as, family time. We got to have family time. We got to build into our family. We got to be able to um, know what's important. If I think our players know what's important, um, they're going to have a really rich experience. So they're going to appreciate sports even more. And they realize that, mom and dad love each other. Probably one of the best ways we can show love to our kids is how we love our significant other.
Really cool. As you're talking through that, I'm in the home stretch of this here with two kids in college. One, as you know, one who's a senior. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I think is cool about this podcast is the parents that are in it right now with 10, 11, 12-year-olds, hopefully having some people that have fast forwarded it like you that are on the other side of it or towards the end of it where I am. It's hard when you're in the moment to think about what's it going to be like in 6 years or
Yep.
10 years or whatever. But having folks like you come on here and talk about the importance of the family right now and just again reiterating those things that sometimes we get lost in the middle of a season or a tournament or a game. And
Yeah.
so to be able to have folks like you come on here and be able to take a step back, hopefully it's helping the parents that are engaged in it right now a little bit. So
Yep.
again, Dave, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Again, appreciate your thoughts and your experience on this. Really appreciate you being on here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you. If you'll just hang on 1 second, let this thing upload. It'll take like 5 seconds and then I'll cut you loose if that's all right.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to like, follow, and share the podcast. If you're looking for more information on strategies that you can use to help optimize your son or daughter's athletic experience, please be sure to check out my book, Parenting Athletic Kids. It's available on Amazon. Thanks again, and we'll be back with another podcast really soon.